picked up the tablet because we've noticed something. As soon as that wasp goes away, go on, go and play. Go play. Go play. That way. Go on, Dotty. She's purposely dotting, piss dotting. First signs of it. She's not going for a pee, she's literally touching her rump area on the floor. Marnie, calm it down, or you're going to get bit again. Calm it down. I know what you're showing me, behave. Yeah, she's actually touching her wenny to the floor, dotting. But I can't see no trace of it yet. But that's the first sign of it, if you see what I mean. So I've been very observant this morning. Yeah, well, stop doing it then, stupid bitch. So I'm just having a relax in the garden today, bit of washing up. Wake up 9:30 this morning after a solid night's sleep, so decided not to I'm going to have to self-help myself, because I simply don't trust the council with their new mental health revenue stream they've been given by the government for pushing their COVID bullshit. So that's their new revenue stream. They've had their rent accounts taken away for being corrupt in that. And corrupting the what the law says you need to live on bit to justify taking money out of people's rents and things like that. They've had all that taken away from them, so now they've moved, or they've been rewarded for their COVID actions by moving into the mental health sector to fill their pension pots. So I'm not going down that avenue with them because I don't trust them. They create the problem. Why they're being rewarded for doing exactly that. So, yeah. There'll be self-help books and watching videos on the subject and trying to self-treat myself. Any medication I need, I'll have to get through the black market. So anti-anxiety medications, that sort of stuff, can get through the black market anyway. So they're just creating more problems, aren't they? Because people just won't go to them because they don't trust them. Simple as that. To get in contact with them, you have to click on a link to link it all up to your computer. No. Not with the council involved in the mix. That's Investigatory Powers Act stuff again, isn't it? Yep, and I can see someone listening just by the light gaps being covered up in the fence. Actually see him standing there. It's funny as fuck. Never mind. Know what they say about people listening to whispers, innit? So PTSD and cptsd. That's what I'm dealing with. person that caused it is listening in to me talk about it. So we've got dogs dotting. First signs of that, so I'll make a note of that date. I'm only interested in my own stuff, and so I'm not interested in anyone banging about next door now it's being spoken about. Simply not interested. Got my window open all night, so that's why he's there. But we know, so we just sort of get on with our life and don't worry about it. Yeah. So that's the result of what happened at the doctor's yesterday. But it's all to make it very difficult to prove what happened to me. They can't officially admit it, can they? Otherwise it would admit it's happened. While they've been trying to blame it on something else. Very clever. So that's what's going on. Dottie's being dotted out. But she's just testing how the boys are reacting when she does it. But that's why she started doing it, to see how the boys react. Look at the light coming through the fence. You can see him moving about the other side of it. So you can even see when he's looking through the holes in the fence. Little spy holes. But you just watch for the light to come back in the hole when he moves away from it. What? Oh, you got a light reflection on the floor, have you? Have you? You're chasing the light reflections, are you, Hulkster? Right. Let's let that poop dry off. Then we come out here and clear it up, shall we? Come on then. Let's go and have me other coffee. Ba 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 ba. Then you can have some dinner. It's not a day for laying in bed. It's too damn hot. Do 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 do. Are you all in here now then? Hulkster! Hulkster! There's a good boy. In you come. Nope, fatty. Don't want you laying on the floor. Leave the back door open. There you go. Hope you get fatty. Budge over you. Nope. 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 Budge over. Yep, windsock. Lay down. Lay down. There's a good girl. Right, let's get this date put on my diary. As you can see.
PTSD stands for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder, a condition officially recognized in 1980 to describe exposure to a relatively brief but devastating event, typically a war,
Just looking for the volume buttons.
or a terrorist incident.
There they are.
Complex PTSD, recognized in 1994, describes exposure to something equally devastating, but over a very long time, normally the first 15 years of life. Emotional neglect, humiliation, bullying, disrupted attachment, violence, and anger. A lot of us, as many as 20%, are wandering the world as undiagnosed sufferers of complex PTSD. We know that all isn't well, but we don't have a term to capture the problem. We don't connect up our ailments, and we have no clue who to seek out or what sort of treatment might help. So
you end up on
antidepressants, complex PTSD.
Right.
We might think about which ones.
When you go to talk to someone and say you've had to look something up yourself, well, we're in charge.
A feeling that nothing is safe. Wherever we are, we have an apprehension that something awful is about to happen. We are in a state of hypervigilance.
Not being re-locked
The
up
catastrophe
with
we
another
expect
setup.
often involves a sudden fall from grace. We will be hauled away from current circumstances and humiliated, perhaps put in prison and denied all access to anything kind or positive. We won't necessarily be killed, but to all intents, our life will be over. People may try to reassure us through logic that reality won't ever be that bad, but logic doesn't help. We're in the grip of an illness. We aren't just a bit confused. Secondly, we can never relax. This shows up in our body.
No, don't
We're permanently tense or rigid. We have trouble with being touched, perhaps in particular areas of the body. The idea of doing yoga or meditation or breathing exercises, these things aren't just not appealing, they may be positively revolting. We may call them hippie with a sneer. And deeper down, they are, of course, terrifying. Probably our bowels are troubled too. Our anxiety has a direct link to our digestive system.
Oh,
Thirdly,
there's another
we
link.
can't ever really sleep, and we wake up very
Ulceric
generally in a
farts.
state of high alarm, as though during rest we've let down our guard and are now in even greater danger than usual. Fourthly, we have deep in ourselves an appalling self-image. We hate who we are. We think we're ugly, monstrous, repulsive. We think we're awful, possibly the most awful person in the world. Our sexuality is especially perturbed. We feel predatory,
People make you feel that
shameful.
way, don't they?
Fifthly, we're often drawn to highly unavailable people. We tell ourselves we hate needy people, but what we really hate.
Well, you've been eating grass, haven't you, Mark Honkster? And you're sitting there attention seeking in front of me just because you done it. You've been eating grass, now you're fucking retching. Lay down. Now.
Sixthly, we are sickened by people who want to be cozy with us. We call these people puppyish, revolting, or desperate. Seventh, we are prone to losing our temper very badly, sometimes with other people, more often
They are
just
calling
with
attention
ourselves.
seekers.
We aren't so much angry as very, very worried that everything is about to become very awful again. We are shouting
It's only 'cause I'm
because we're terrified.
like I am at the
We
moment.
look mean, we are, in fact, defenseless. Eighth, we are highly paranoid. It's not that we expect other people will poison us or follow us down the street. We just suspect that other people will be hostile to us and will be looking out for opportunities to crush and humiliate us. We can be mesmerically drawn to examples of this happening on social media, the unkindest and most arbitrary environment which anyone with complex PTSD easily confuses with the whole world, chiefly because it operates like their world, randomly and very meanly. Ninth, we find other people so dangerous and worrying that being alone has huge attractions. We might like to go and live under a rock forever. In some moods, we associate bliss with not having to see anyone again.
Yay!
We don't register to ourselves as
That's me.
suicidal, but the truth is that we find living so exhausting and often so unpleasant, we do sometimes long not to have to exist anymore.
Yep.
11. We can't afford to show much spontaneity. We're rigid about our routines. Everything may need to be exactly so, as an attempt to ward off looming chaos. We may clean a lot. Sudden changes of plan can feel indistinguishable from the ultimate downfall we dread. 12.
You like things in
order.
order.
To try to find safety, we may throw ourselves into
even
work,
if it's your medication.
money, fame, honour, prestige. But of course this never works. The sense of danger and self-disgust is coming from so deep within, we can never reach a sense of safety externally. A million people can be cheering, but one jeer will be enough once again to evoke the self-disgust we have left unaddressed inside. Breaks from work can feel especially worrying. Retirement and holidays create unique difficulties. Those are the symptoms. So what is the cure for all these arduous symptoms of complex PTSD? Partly we need to courageously realise that we have come through something terrible that we haven't until now properly digested, because we haven't had a kind, stable environment in which to do so. We are a little wonky because long ago the situation was genuinely awful. When we were small, someone made us feel extremely unsafe, even though they might have been
or
our
depend
parent.
on the people
We were made
around
to
you.
think that nothing about who we were was acceptable. In the name of being brave, we had to endure some very difficult separations, perhaps repeated over years. No one reassured us of our worth. We were judged with intolerable harshness. The damage may have been very obvious, but more typically, it might have unfolded in objectively innocent circumstances. A casual visitor might never have noticed. There might have been a narrative, which lingers still, that we were part of a happy family. One of the great discoveries of researchers in complex PTSD is that emotional neglect within outwardly high-achieving families can be as damaging as active violence in obviously deprived ones. If any of this rings bells, we should stop being brave. We should allow ourselves to feel compassion for who we were. That might not be easy, given how hard we tend to be with ourselves. The next step is to try to identify a therapist or counsellor trained in how to handle complex PTSD. That may well be someone trained specifically in dealing with trauma, which involves developing enormous amounts of compassion towards one's younger self, in order to have the courage to face the trauma and recognise its impact on one's life. Rather touchingly and simply, the root cause of complex PTSD is an absence of love, and the cure for it follows the same path. We need to relearn to love someone we
Well, obviously, it's annoying me, isn't it?
Beyond measure. Ourselves.
The School of Life offers online psychotherapy to people all around the world. Our therapists are highly trained and accredited.
Yep, I know, Marnie.
Source of kindness, solace,
Pushing me is not going to get it done any quicker, is it?
Click the link to find out more.
Load the fuck down. Yes, I know you're waiting for your dinner. Oh, Marnie, Marnie, moo. Come on. Ugh. Right. Let's find the one. Oh, no, that wasn't the one. Right, let's go to
One of the main reasons I fell in love with psychology was really because of this idea that childhood shapes who we are. Going back to Freud
this is the one I watched
and
before.
the beginning of object relations and all of those amazing early
Let's leave it running.
psychoanalytic theories really just made me fall
I'm being
in love
pushed
with
by the
ideas
dogs.
And attachment and those theories.
So I'm just going to put this down.
I just truly believe
Go and make me
with all
coffee.
my heart that this combination of our genetics and our environment, and very much the piece of our experiences, truly do shape who we become. And to me, nowhere is that more true than with childhood trauma. And so today's video is all about understanding there are 12
And then
very
an
common
adult trauma.
signs that you may
And
have
then another
experienced
trauma
childhood
after
trauma.
it.
And I'm going to go through those in just
Then
a
another
minute.
trauma.
Before I get started though, I'm
CPTSD.
Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I hope you'll
Right.
consider subscribing and clicking the bell and joining this little community that's growing. It's really been amazing, and every time someone shares with me that they feel validated, that they feel understood, it makes all of this learning to use YouTube and videos and trying to, in my sweatshirt on a Sunday, keep going, because I truly do love what I do and I love sharing this information, and it's just not always easy to get. So thank you so much for watching. The top most common signs that you have maybe experienced childhood trauma are really found in the research. They're highly supported in literature, and none of these are really sort of unexpected signs, right? So the first one that I'm going to make a whole series of videos on is really about this idea of how childhood trauma shapes our DNA, shapes our brains, shapes how our bodies respond to in terms of hormones and cortisol and all of those things. But the truth is that if you have had a childhood with trauma filled in it, especially repetitive trauma, but even, at one-time trauma, you are much more at risk for having chronic health issues. And what I'm talking about here are things like autoimmune diseases like lupus and RA, things like chronic migraines and headaches, gastrointestinal issues like Crohn's and IBS, everything from cancer, diabetes, and heart disease. These are very well documented, especially things like also fibromyalgia, things that we can't always find a root for, but we know exist. And the truth is that trauma exists in the body. The body has to respond to traumatic experiences with chemicals, with structural change. And so if you have a chronic health issue, this may be one of the signs, not by itself, but in conjunction with the other ones that you've experienced childhood trauma. The next thing that we often see with childhood trauma are chronic mental health issues, things like depression, anxiety, PTSD. Of course, we also have things like OCD and the personality disorders that were, many times a part of genetics, but also had to evolve to survive childhood. And so chronic mental health issues. The third most common sign in terms of having traumatic childhood experiences is the fact that if you find yourself overly reliant upon substances, alcohol, marijuana, pills, anything like that, you may have had a traumatic childhood and may be inadvertently trying to cope with your childhood by trying to choose something to help you deal with the flood of trauma, even including cigarette smoking. It's also well documented that those with significant trauma, historically speaking, have smoked cigarettes more. And it does provide some relief, and I'll come back to that in another video. But just the general use of substances to numb and regulate emotion can very much be a part of childhood trauma. Number 4 is a tendency to dissociate, tendency to space out and kind of go somewhere else. This can be part of ADHD or focus or memory issues, and memory issues in general. So all of those in terms of how the brain deals with the past and the present can be another sign of childhood trauma. Number 5 is if you are a harshly critical and a perfectionist type of person. These are very clear signs sometimes with the other ones that you had to survive your childhood by trying to always assess how to protect yourself, how to get it right, how to be safe, and also internalizing that sort of negative, often maternal and paternal experience and rejection often creates a very harsh lens we put on ourselves. And so being highly critical and perfectionistic is also a sign. The next one is toxic shame. And really this toxic shame is really this concept that we feel worthless, we feel we have no value, we feel stupid or ugly, and it really is the core of what I discussed in this video, which is that I am bad, that at the core there is something deeply wrong with me. The next one is that we often live in survival mode. Because we had to survive our childhoods, especially in a chronic situation of trauma, but even if it's a one-time event, we have to be activating these fight or flight, freeze or fawn. I'm going to come back to those also in another video. But we want to understand that our body had to respond and prepare for attack, for escape, to almost dissociate and freeze like we see in frequent sexual abuse in children. And so, or fawning, we have to sort of like make it all good for the caregiver to be okay. And so you should know that living in survival mode on some level, which can really feel like a heightened
I'm going to drink from the empty bucket just to make get up and put me in
depressed, sympathetic nervous system functioning that's not healthy, or parasympathetic nervous system that's really not helpful. The next issue is kind of goes with that idea of toxic shame, but it really is a lack of worthiness in general. So no matter what we do, even if we can see that we perform something well, and we're not necessarily feeling ashamed about it, we can never take ownership or value. We always expect to fail deep inside, or see ourselves as failures, and or may fear success, because at the core there's a worthlessness there that no matter what happens doesn't often change. Number 9 is emotional flashbacks, and emotional flashbacks are sudden emotional regressions back to feeling states in childhood where we felt those feelings of worthlessness, fear, shame, abandonment, regret, rage, grief, sadness. Anything that sort of transports us back to that regressed state in childhood can be part of emotional flashbacks, and I discussed those in this video if you want to check that out. Number 10 is we often have control issues. We like to be in control. We're always managing and trying to like back everything up from the worst case scenario, or we feel out of control. But the need to be in control is a vital part of surviving childhood. And so it gets really reinforced in childhood, right? Because the more you can control, the safer you are, the more you can minimize or reduce harm. But we often take this strategy into adulthood, and being a controlling person or trying to control situations can be another sign. Number 11 is that when you have had a traumatic experience in childhood, you often have really difficult issues with feeling trust and safety in other people. You tend to often isolate and only trust yourself. You tend to feel safest with yourself. And at the core, we often believe that nobody will ever truly be there for us, and no one is truly safe. I think sometimes with our kids we can feel this because there's less of a threat, but when it comes to other adults, and especially if we don't have a personality disorder, you know, we're pretty decently functioning with our trauma, our kids can feel safer. As they grow, sometimes they get older, that can be triggering, and that's a whole different issue,
So you can
which I believe I discussed in this video.
In there.
But the reality is that not having a safe ability to trust others,
What are
and
you
a sense
doing, you
of
stupid
security,
cunt? Get out of the
can be a
way.
great hallmark of
You
trauma.
are a great
Thanks so much
bitch.
for watching. Take care and stay safe. We'll see you soon.
There, right, eat your dinner. You can get to eat. So what part of that? Yeah.
I've done a lot of thinking over the years about how I stayed in the dark, in the sort of trance of my childhood, and why even having a master's degree didn't help. So many people are walking around feeling emotionally lonely and isolated and isolating in their lives, but don't necessarily know that they're so deep in
Come on,
that place
up.
of
You ate your dinner.
loneliness
Up.
because it has been their entire
Hey.
story.
Come
So
on.
they may or may
Up.
not feel or experience true loneliness
Get
the way we
up.
think about it.
Come on.
In other words, the implication is that
Up.
there's
Leave
a
them to
desire
eat their
and
dinner in
longing for
peace
other
without
people to be
harassing them.
around. Many of us feel the most ourselves when we are
There's a
alone.
good girl, Fatty.
And outside of different, patterns for our brains and things like that,
Not
I
having
will
their
say
dinner,
that,
you're not pushing
and
them
those
off
can
their
layer
bowl.
together. If you had a childhood that lacked real emotional intimacy, it often creates a life for you
There you
where,
go,
for many
look out.
different reasons, the story of your
Licking your
nervous
paws,
system
are you,
is
where
that
you've been
I'm
biting them
really
already?
most familiar
Licking
at
your
home
legs.
when I'm alone.
Oh yeah.
And yet there might be parts of your life while you really
That's
enjoy
his little
being
flirting with you, isn't he?
that you would like to add more connection into your life, but you don't really know how. So let's talk about the relationship between complex PTSD, loneliness, emotional loneliness, and isolation. Because
Oh, it's
when
great.
we're talking about emotional
No
loneliness,
head doers.
you may have grown up in a house surrounded with people. You may have never even had your own room, there were so many people, or resources were limited, whatever it was, or you chose that. So the idea of like loneliness is not something you really connect to, but you do
Not
connect
lonely
to
with
this
dogs,
need to
are you?
isolate and how it impacts your life. So let's talk about why that happens, what kind of situations in childhood can create emotional loneliness and a lack of emotional intimacy, which then can affect every area of your life, not just whether you isolate or not, but how you show up with people, how you give or receive love physically, emotionally, intimately, how you think you're supposed to be with yourself about loving yourself or showing up for yourself or not. It can be impactful. So let's talk about that, like I'm saying. So we're going to look at a bunch of scenarios where this is often happening.
All right.
Now, of course, the more this happens, the more the repetitive the
You want to
pattern
come and
is,
do your little
the
lady?
more significant
Come
the
here,
impacts
then.
can be. So let's get into what kind of situations at homes we often in childhoods we
Oh,
often
you're
see
getting your
this
little
in.
snuggle in
The first
before
one
the
is you
boys
had
get up
no
on the
real
bed, are
emotional
you?
safety. And what I mean is that no matter how great or not the parents were, they were generally not predictable or consistent. And so at the end of the day, you learn that there's no place for emotional safety. And this is often found in narcissistic parents and parents who have mood disorders, who may have different personality disorders, different trauma
Where did my
responses,
vape
but
go?
at the end of the
It's
day,
broken.
your nervous system could never fully relax because it was
No,
an
that's
eggshell
cool.
roller coaster situation. Number two, you never
Oh, you
really
being
felt
a soppy
seen or
girl,
known
are you?
in childhood by
Are
your
you being a
caregivers for
soppy
who
girl,
you really
are
are.
you?
You know, do you like mayonnaise or mustard? Do you have dreams about this thing or that thing? What's your favorite color? What do you enjoy? Who your friends are? Who your teachers were? Where you struggle in school? Things like that. Number three, you were told that you were someone else. So you were labeled and given an identity by the parents. You were the golden child, for example. You were the scapegoat. You're the bad child.
You're having your
the
little
child. You're the
snuggles,
whatever,
are
the
you?
achiever. So it wasn't about seeing you for who
Oh,
you
yeah.
are, but about
Well,
a
the boys
projection
are
of
out
your
there.
parents' desires.
Is
for
this
who
you
they
being
wanted
a
you to
beautiful
be,
girl,
and
is it?
therefore, where
Is
your
it?
value or
You want
not,
your belly
and where
rubbed,
that
do ya?
occurred in childhood.
You
in
want
that
a
role.
belly rub, do
Number
ya?
four, you were
You want
truly
that belly
a child
rubbed,
that
do
experienced
ya?
emotional neglect. So there was really just no attempt made to
Oh,
have
you're starting to get bellyache, are ya?
conversations, to express
Aye.
feelings, and they might have even been
You're starting to get
extinguished
girly
if they've been shared,
bellyache.
but really
Oh,
the
yeah.
emotional connection was just didn't really
Aye.
exist. The next one is that you couldn't tell secrets to your parent in any way. So revealing, who you are, who you love, what you do, what your passions are, whatever it is, or things that hurt you. It didn't feel safe because they
You
would
being soppy,
not hold the
girl.
secret. They might shame or minimize you for it, but things that were not even necessarily secrets,
Yeah,
but
look, you can stroke her now without her scrunching her back up from her spots.
The next one is that you could never challenge your parents' emotions.
Her
So there would never be
skin's
any
not
real reciprocity.
alive
The
to
parent was
touch or
always
nothing.
here, you were
It's
here,
looking
they
great.
were right and you were wrong. And there
Yeah,
was
who's a
clear
happy
hierarchy. It
girl
was not
nowadays,
safe
aren't you,
to say,
baby?
well, I don't like it when you yell at me, or, you're really angry
Hey, you
right now
happy
and that's
girl.
upsetting. Could you please not do that? Things like that. It was just not an option. The next one, number 7, is that you could not consistently rely on that parent for emotional or physical or mental safety. So maybe it was maybe it was physical safety that was lacking. But whatever it was, of course, if you don't have physical safety, then you don't have emotional safety. It's all connected. So there was just this consistency around a combination.
Are you trying to
of what it
get
meant
me, are
to
you?
be safe in your mind
Are you
and
trying to
your
get
body.
me?
Number
Are ya?
8, it was a scarcity
Oh, you
type of
can't get
environment.
me,
So
I'm
there was
too
just
quick.
not enough food, not enough love,
You
not enough
can't
patience,
get
not
me.
enough emotions,
I'm too
not
quick
enough
for you.
resources, whatever. Everybody was focused on what they weren't getting enough of. And it may have been that the thing you really struggled to have and that you provide, it may have been that you lived in a 10,000 was like this, but the idea was that there was never enough for people and what they needed.
You're going to sneak attack me and pinch
Number
bite
9,
me, aren't you?
and this goes along with that,
Aren't
is
you?
there's no real reciprocity.
Oh, you want your
And
belly
so,
rubbed.
like I kinda said earlier, there's no real
Okay.
give and take.
Let's
It's
give you a
very
belly rub.
rigid,
Oh,
controlled,
girly.
controlled,
Oh,
really
girly.
is the reason why
Look at
there's no
you.
reciprocity. Number
Wait,
10,
stop
parents
biting my
cannot
quilt.
attend to you. Now, this all makes
Wait,
sense.
stop
These
it.
all kind of go together.
Stop
But
biting
you
my
didn't
quilt.
feel like they could see you with a twinkle
Stop
in
it.
their eye, like ever. They didn't see
Stop
you as
it.
a gift, as loved. You never felt special.
Stop
no
it.
one felt special, or only certain kids felt special.
Stop
or certain
it.
people. So there wasn't like this, we talk about this idea of like your eyes lighting up when you see your child in some way. I'm not saying perfectly every time, but there's a delight and a joy in that, and you feel that specialness. So that maybe was very minimal or didn't exist. Maybe you felt like a burden, actually. Number 11, your parents were too self-absorbed in their lives for any kind of emotional contact or reciprocity.
Ooh.
So this would be a kind of classic narcissistic family system
Ooh.
where they're physically absent, of course.
You wanna bite
abandonment,
something,
being
don't you?
absent, being conditional in terms of your physical appearance with your kids.
Calm down.
Maybe it's a low custody
Get
situation
ya.
if your parents were divorced, but whatever
And
it
stop
was.
biting my
It
quilt.
was like the parent was too much in their own world, and there wasn't really any space for you.
Don't stop.
to
No,
be physically
no
in
biting
your
pillows.
Number 12, the parents actively
No
validated
biting.
emotions. They discounted them, they minimized, they mocked.
Cheeky
To
girl, I'll
diminish
have
whatever
ya.
it was. There was an intentional
Getcha.
message
Well, I'll
around
get you under there.
emotions. Maybe it was like, boys don't cry,
Right, that's
don't
it.
be weak.
You lay down
Stop
now.
being a crybaby, you're too sensitive. So there's an intentional language and behavior around emotions. And then the last two are that maybe you were actually punished for your feelings. So if you, especially negative feelings, we think of as crying, anger, you weren't allowed to have
that
them, or you
nice,
were
is it?
actually punished for having them. You were sent away,
Is that
sent to your
nice?
room, you lost things, if you had an appropriate temper tantrum, which kids do, appropriate meaning for childhood, sometimes we lose it. There wasn't an attempt to understand emotionally why, it was just really punished. And the attempt was to just extinguish any expression of emotions through punishment.
Cigarette.
And lastly, you may have been isolated. And so whether it was like you spent hours and hours alone, the parents were at work, the parents were absent, the parents were in addiction, whatever it was, there was a lot of isolation. And so you were left to your own devices around emotions. And because it was, so much to manage, you learned to kind of put them away and never develop the skills of emotional connectivity and intimacy. So what can you do if you're saying, yes, this is a big reason why I isolate, there was sort of this just vacancy in my childhood around emotional connection and intimacy, and I don't know what to do about it, and right now the only tactic I have is isolation, and I frankly enjoy that, but there are times when I wish I wasn't quite so much that way, perhaps, and it's holding me back,
Because
or
you're
I'm
ready
very
to
much
settle
that
down
way and I'd
and
like to change
you
it.
don't know what to
The
do
first thing
now.
is to just honor the wounded child within, which I know we hear all the time, but sometimes just making space for, if you can't necessarily honor yourself, at least honoring that you know that what happened to you isn't something you'd want for your own children or your own families, right? It's like you can honor that something happened that was hurtful to you. And sometimes that's easier than connecting to our child selves because it can feel so distant, but honoring that. Number
Make
two,
sure get the
examine where
reason
your
why I
wounds are being
separated
reinforced. So where are you
from my
creating or reenacting your
birth
trauma?
mother.
So for example, if you kind of want to do things, but your social anxiety or your tendency to isolate is interfering
tried
with your
to
ability
repeat
to do
it
some things, then
after
even
the
though it
death of
feels
my
safer
father.
to do those things, at the end of the day,
I
you're
just weren't
reinforcing
in the
them.
right
And
place
so
for
looking at
dealing
those
with that then.
patterns,
So
and of course
that was the
looking
end
at
of
where
that.
you might seek help and support for working
Never
on
going
those
back
issues.
on that one.
Number three, understanding that your nervous system has these patterns and roles,
Because it was
and
that
how
parent
that is really affecting the way
caused
you
me
show up.
lots and
So for
lots of
example,
sleepless
if you had a
nights and
childhood where there
problems
wasn't
with
too
my
much
health.
connection, but
So
there's a lot of
I've
like
had to
anger
cut
and
links
rage or
for
eggshell,
that reason.
unpredictable stuff,
Because
and
she
you
ain't
live in a
stopping.
fight or flight dynamic. And so the way that you deal with that fight or flight is
So
that
I've kept
you,
her out
whenever
my head
chance
for
you
the
get,
last 6 months
your
at
nervous system
least.
is so activated around people and work and everything else in the world that you actually prefer isolation.
So she can't press buttons
You need to
anymore.
understand though that what you're doing is, in your isolating, it's not that you don't necessarily want connection, it's just that at this point in your life, that's the only way you know how to feel calm and in your body. And so looking at how to elevate your nervous system, how to reduce your nervous system, and managing like the polyvagal ladder, those types of things is really important. Number
Yeah.
5, make a list of what you enjoy when you're isolating and alone and what you'd like to do different, where you'd like more connection.
I've got the hang of
So it's not a
uploading from the
blanket
camera
statement
now,
like,
so.
oh, you can't ever, it's
But
bad
it's just
to do
easier
these
to
things.
do
I
this
actually think
way
isolation
today
can be a
with the
lifesaver
tablet.
for so many people. For their own healing, for their own nervous systems. It's just when it crosses into a place where you feel lonely or you want more connection, only you can decide what is right for you. But we know that there's a place where connection is actually really healing. So, but look at where are you okay with it, and where would
I've
you
got
like
some
to challenge
friends that
yourself to
aren't
grow
head
some more and
doers.
make some changes. Number 6,
I've got
I
some
do believe
family
is more than
members
anything, is
that
that
aren't
you can talk
head
about these
doers.
things all day long, but you have to do something. You have to, okay, I'm going to go take a cooking class by myself at the Sur La Table or whatever. I'm going to book a vacation alone. I'm going to just go to the neighborhood party by myself, even though it's really scary. Or I'm going to make a phone call by myself, and that feels like I'm reaching out for connection. I'm going to make a lunch date with somebody. So you have to do things. There's only so far you can go with thinking and processing. You have to, I talk a lot about in my reparenting course, setting up your life as if you do matter. It is about doing things, boundaries,
Yeah, that's right.
self.
So when you've got someone that's
Care,
playing
things
up
like that, all
for
of
his own
that,
issues,
from your exercise,
and he's
your
manipulating
physical health,
for his
your
own
mental health,
issues,
you have to do things. And many of us, especially if there's like a
you
wasteland
can
of
see it.
emotional connection and intimacy, you've just stuffed
It's
all
the
the parts
beginning
of
of
yourself
another.
that make you, and you've kind of like the parent, minimized them, shamed them, judged them, neglected them. And
It's another
you don't
person
necessarily
beginning
know
the
even
same
how
process,
to
if you
where
see
to
what I
begin,
mean. You
what
can
to
see it
do.
happening, you've
But
tried
you've
to talk
got to
about
do
it, but
something. So take actionable steps, even if they're baby steps. The next one is to explore what is the narrative of that
that's the
child.
only reason my
So
grandson's
oftentimes there's a
acting
core
like he
belief of
is.
the core wound. So there's no space for my emotions. Nobody wants
I
to
said at the
hear my
moment,
feelings.
Tyler,
My
with me,
feelings
you're
don't matter.
being
My feelings are dangerous.
ungrateful.
My feelings deserve punishment. I'm bad for having feelings.
We know why
Those
you're
kinds
doing
of
it.
narratives. And to do
You
the work,
still
whether it's through
refuse
reading
to
books
stop
on inner
doing it.
child work and reparenting, which
So
is
for
the
that
next
reason
big one,
alone,
to do that kind of work, to and
it's
that,
better
like I
if
said,
your
goes
dad
back
deals
not just
with
how
it.
you think about yourself and how you talk to yourself, but how you show up for yourself in your life.
He can deal
And
with it
so
here,
look at
it's
that
not a
narrative
problem.
and
I
start to
haven't got a
challenge it
problem with
little
him
bit.
coming here,
Even though
but
that may have
it's,
been absolutely a true narrative for your childhood, it doesn't mean it has to be the narrative of your adult life.
you know,
Or you have to stay in that narrative.
he
There are
wants his
places
dad
to
to
modify it and potentially shape it
be
into
doing
a
it all,
place where it feels
so
much better for
that's
you.
the best thing to do.
And
I
lastly,
step
do
away,
work on
there you go,
honoring
get
and
on with
looking
it.
at your emotions.
That's what I did
How do you communicate
this
them
weekend.
to yourself?
Just gone.
How do you accept them or not? How do you express them?
Right.
The work of emotions is such a big thing if you did not have emotional
Don't
safety
moan
in
at me about
childhood
it.
and connectivity and
I've given
intimacy, and you actually had loneliness, that it feels
you the
like
correct advice to sort
overwhelming
it out.
to even think about how you might share your
I'm
feelings
dealing
to
with
someone
issues
you
at the
care
moment,
about.
so
I think for
there you
certain
go, be a man.
populations, certain cultures,
You deal with your own son.
even talking about feelings is even
It
it's
help
just
you.
like, it's a taboo. You're not supposed to talk about that. You can talk about your body or your health issues
It'd
or
make
about
me happy to
sports
see
or
it.
whatever it is, but there hasn't been a real encouragement
You
in
know?
different people's lives about how to really talk about emotions and how to share them, how to feel them,
So there's no
how to
problem
not shame them in yourself.
unless someone turns it into a
Those are the
problem.
things I think are most helpful in healing that emotional loneliness, especially if it relates to cptsd. And if or not,
So
I
that's
should say,
what
because
I've been
you don't
doing,
necessarily need to have isolation in this, but I think
But
oftentimes
taking the
we felt
emotional
so
hits
isolated in our
weren't
emotions
good for me.
because of that lack of intimacy and connectivity that
Just
it
put
is the
me on a
first place
downward
we go in our
spiral,
adult
if you see
lives.
what I mean.
The last thing I'll say is that because of what happened in the last few years, for those of us who already have these issues and tendencies, it's made it stronger. So it's made our tolerance, our social batteries for many of us, we feel safer alone. And I think for many people that's been a good thing to realize, oh, I was actually living in a very stressed, extremely
You don't go
strenuous
out, you
social
don't do nothing, just
dynamic.
sit
I
there
don't
and
want
zone.
that. I want to have more balance. For others,
I
it's
wonder
gotten
why.
so far that way we're not sure how to go back
Safest
in.
for me,
Our
isn't it?
bodies don't feel like they can tolerate that same connection anymore.
Emotionally,
So, just honoring, only you know where you are in that
mentally.
work, but there can be many factors, not just your childhood, but also what's happened in your daily life, with your job,
too
your
peoply
partners,
out there
your
sometimes,
stories,
isn't it?
all of those things, your
And all
family,
those
for sure.
people
And I guess I would just add this, I didn't have it written down,
want
but
to be
if
noticed.
this is still
Shout
your
and
family
scream
dynamic, if you're still
to be
expected to show
noticed.
up and go back
And
to
it's
the family at the
overwhelming
holidays or
sometimes,
every
I
week
just
or
don't want
Sunday
to be
dinner,
around it.
in
So
that
I put my
emotionless
headphones in
dynamic,
or I
something is going to have to give.
retreat
Because as you do this work, it's going to make it more difficult to
to my
tolerate.
place of
So maybe
safety.
it's setting new boundaries, maybe it's trying to create some kind of connection or healing with these parents or family members or friends. But just understand that when you shift, it really is like a domino effect. It starts to shift the whole system.
There
And
you
like
go.
I'm saying, that can be a good thing and a difficult thing.
Yeah,
So, and
it's
those can both
difficult
be
because
worthy,
everyone's
right?
dealing
Difficult
with their
isn't
own
always bad.
issues, so
Sometimes
when
difficult
someone
is the
starts
source of
changing
growth.
it all
But just
to
keep that in mind. So, thank you
for
for
their
being here.
reasons,
Please stay safe and well, and take good
then
care of your
obviously
child.
people get
And
their
I will
feathers
see you
ruffled,
tomorrow.
don't they?
Bye.
So if I'm at the same stage, like I said, where I'm at the end of my sentence and I'm changing my environment around me the same as I did on the prison wing, then I'm doing exactly the same as what I was doing before I got released. So I'm making the future better as I see it and need it to be. I was so happy to see my son when I walked out that gate. I was so happy to see my grandchildren when I came out. And then reality hit. Got to start from scratch. So I built it all back up. Getting more than what I got before now. My health's still taking a hit from dealing with all the trauma and everything else. Prison was just an add-on to that, really. Nothing more than that. But I was having PTSD episodes in prison. Once people realised that, they was like, whoa, yeah, he was willing to kill yourself. That's heavy shit. None of us wanted to do that. It's heavy shit, bro. But I proved everything. That's the thing. And here's the funny thing about it. Right. They're trying to blame it all on cannabis psychosis. Why would that be? Because if they admit to me suffering from PTSD from that event, it proves what I've said. Let me just repeat that. It proves what I've said all along. That someone was moved into this area by the council to cause those problems for what I stated it for reasons of sectioning, imprisoning, or actually killing me. And now they know I can prove it. Does that ramp up my threat level because I can expose it all? Yep. Am I afraid of that? Not at all. But if I can prove that, I can clear my name as well, can't I? And that's what they don't want, because that means their prison plan failed. Do you get what I'm saying now? Which moves me on to the next category of the Investigatory Powers Act, doesn't it? Because we all know what happened once I left prison. Yes, London did burn, because the heat got turned right up like it is now. And I'm still changing my environment for the better. Right? Yeah, I'm pointing at Willow at the moment, not the telly or the window. Not for any particular reason, but you know, copyright issues, I'd say, while I'm showing people how I'm having to self-help, because the council are now in charge of mental health revenue stream for their pension pot. So the ones that caused the problem are at the finish line, ready to glean all the information of what they did to me to see if it worked. And when they find out it hasn't worked and I'm actually exposing them through that, they can shut it down and hide it, can't they? By saying this, that or the other, because they're in charge. So it is PTSD I'm suffering from. Could well be cptsd now, because they haven't treated it. Because I've got no faith in their system whatsoever. So, unless I can self-treat myself now, this is what I'm stuck with. And obviously, the person that did it is listening in, because he don't know what's going on. That's what I heard him say to the instigator. So that's why he's listening. Because he has to tell her so they can cover their backs. Right? They did this. That one and that one. But that one was moved in to do it. How do I act around them? Don't want nothing to do with them. They live their lives, I live mine. We have no contact whatsoever. I don't even politely say hello if I come across them in the post office. I don't even look at them. They disgust me, because I know what they are. I don't hold on to it though, if that makes any sense. I've already let it go. It is what it is. All I can do is, I don't have no feelings for them, so I can't wish them well in life. They've done what they've done. Karma's coming. It's gonna fucking pay back. It's nothing to do with me, it's karma. So all I can say is, make the most of the time you got left. Same as I am. I wish the best for myself, but I can't say the same back. So, I want to get better. They're a stumbling block to that, aren't they? So, I've let it all go. No attachment, no contact. And that's how it goes. It's the only way I can break myself free from the chain of it. So, that's that. Moving forward, it's bit by bit, whatever I feel comfortable doing. If things are doing me head in, I'll just turn them off now. Yeah, there's a little situation building on YouTube I was following. I don't care how it pans out. You can see how it pans out. The people I like on YouTube. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your stories. It's only going to go one way, I should think. Someone's going to get the ump in the end and end the problem. So, you know, egos, playing with egos.